What if the man you marry isn't who he seems? Amina thought she was marrying a humble farmer, but her husband Kofi has a secret: he's a billionaire. Will their love survive the truth and the pressure of family expectations? Watch the twist unfold in this powerful African tale of love, sacrifice, and unexpected secrets. In a small, dusty village nestled deep within the heart of Africa, there lived a girl named Amina. Her home was humble, a simple hut made of mud and thatch. Her family, though loving, was poor. Every day, Amina woke up before dawn to help her mother fetch water from the well and tend to their small farm. Her father had passed away when she was young, leaving her mother to raise her and her younger brother, Tund. Amina had always dreamed of a life beyond the struggles of the village, a life filled with hope and opportunity. But fate had other plans for her. She was known for her beauty, kindness, and intelligence, and it wasn't long before the elders in the village began to discuss her future. In the village, marriages were often arranged by the elders, and Amina's mother was no exception. One day, the village chief, a wise and respected elder named Chief Olufemi, called for a meeting in the central square. As the villagers gathered, he spoke of Amina's bright future and the need to marry her off to a young man who could care for her and ensure her well-being. "Young Amina has grown into a fine young woman," said Chief Olufemi. "It is time for her to marry. We must ensure that she is given a chance for a good life. There is a man among us who is a good match for her, though he is not as wealthy as others may be. But he is hard-working and honest." Amina's heart sank. She had never met this man, and she had always hoped to marry for love, not out of obligation. She looked at her mother, hoping for some sign of support, but her mother's face was clouded with worry. They were poor, and a marriage to anyone, even someone she didn't know, might be the only chance for Amina to escape their difficult life. As the chief continued, he spoke of the man's name, Kofi. Amina's stomach twisted in confusion. She had heard of Kofi, but only as a humble farmer. He was often seen tending to his small plot of land at the edge of the village. He was quiet and reclusive, and many wondered why he didn't take part in village gatherings or celebrations. No one knew much about him, except that he kept to himself. The chief smiled warmly as he spoke of Kofi's sincerity, though he made no mention of his wealth or status. "Amina," her mother whispered softly, "this is our chance. We must do this for the family." Amina had no choice but to obey. With a heavy heart, she agreed to the marriage. The wedding would be arranged in just a few days, and though she tried to fight the tears, she couldn't stop herself from feeling the weight of the future pressing down on her. As the villagers celebrated the announcement of the upcoming wedding, Amina found herself lost in a swirl of thoughts. She did not love Kofi, nor did she know him well. All she could do was hope that he would be kind and treat her with respect. But what no one in the village knew, not even Amina, was that Kofi was no ordinary farmer. Beneath his humble exterior, he was a secret billionaire, a man of wealth and influence far beyond anything the village could imagine. And he had his own reasons for staying hidden in the shadows. Amina would soon discover that her life, and the life of the village, was about to change forever. The wedding day arrived, and the sun rose over the village with a golden glow. The air was filled with excitement, though a sense of unease lingered in Amina's heart. As the villagers gathered in the central square to witness the ceremony, Amina could barely contain her nerves. She wore a simple dress made of the finest cloth her mother could afford, and her hair was braided into intricate patterns, but her heart was heavy. Kofi stood at the altar, waiting for her. His appearance was modest, his clothes plain, his posture humble. To Amina, he seemed just as ordinary as everyone else in the village. He did not smile or speak much, instead standing quietly with his head bowed, as if lost in his thoughts. As Amina walked toward him, she noticed the quiet murmurs of the villagers. Some were whispering about her beauty, others about her good fortune in marrying such a respectable man. Yet none of them seemed to know the true story behind Kofi. The ceremony proceeded without incident. The chief spoke the words of union, and the villagers cheered as Amina and Kofi were pronounced husband and wife. Amina forced a smile, though her heart was filled with confusion. She had no idea what her future held with this man, who seemed like a stranger to her. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon and the village celebrated with music and dancing, Amina found herself alone with Kofi in their small hut. It was nothing like the lavish home she had imagined for herself in her dreams. It was simple, just like Kofi. "Are you happy?" Kofi asked softly, his deep voice carrying a hint of concern. Amina looked up at him, unsure of how to answer. She had spent so much time worrying about the future that she had never stopped to ask herself that question. She knew that happiness was a far-off dream, not something she could hold in her hands. She nodded gently, though doubt lingered in her eyes. The night was quiet, save for the distant sounds of laughter and drums from the village celebration. Amina couldn't sleep. She turned over in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing. What did Kofi really want from her? And why had he kept to himself all these years? The next morning, Kofi woke early and left the hut before dawn. He didn't explain where he was going, and Amina, still unsure of what was happening in her life, stayed behind. She had no idea that this would be the beginning of a new and strange chapter in her life. Days passed, and Kofi remained elusive. He would often leave before Amina woke up, returning only at night. He never discussed his business or activities, and though Amina had questions, she hesitated to ask. But one afternoon, after weeks of solitude and uncertainty, Amina made a decision. She was going to follow him. She had to know what he was doing. She had to understand why he had so much mystery surrounding him. One bright morning, while Kofi was preparing to leave once again, Amina slipped quietly out of their hut and followed him from a distance, keeping herself hidden in the tall grasses of the village outskirts. She kept to the shadows, careful not to be seen. She followed him through the forest and over hills, down dirt roads that twisted and turned, until they reached a place that was completely unfamiliar to her. Amina hid behind a large tree and watched as Kofi approached a massive, elegant mansion hidden in the woods, far away from the village. She gasped, her heart racing. How could he have such a home? How could this simple farmer, who barely spoke and wore ragged clothes, live in a mansion like this? Amina watched as Kofi walked into the mansion, greeted by well-dressed men and women who bowed to him respectfully. This was no ordinary house. It was a palace, a symbol of wealth that Amina had never imagined. Her mind spun with confusion and disbelief. As she watched from a distance, the truth slowly began to sink in. Kofi was not a poor man. He was not the humble farmer everyone believed him to be. He was someone powerful, someone with wealth beyond imagination, and yet he had chosen to live in secrecy, hiding in plain sight. But why? Amina felt a mixture of anger and betrayal rising within her. She had been married to a man who had deceived her, who had kept the truth from her. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that her entire life in the village had been a lie. But even as she stood there, staring at the mansion, she could not help but wonder what Kofi's secret life meant for her. What would happen when he found out that she knew the truth? Would he tell her why he had hidden his wealth? Or would everything unravel in a way that would shatter her heart? And so, Amina made a vow to herself: she would confront Kofi. She would demand answers, no matter the cost. The days following Amina's discovery were filled with turmoil. She couldn't get the image of the mansion out of her mind, the opulence, the wealth, the life Kofi had been hiding from her. She replayed the scene over and over in her head, trying to make sense of it all. Why had he chosen to live in such secrecy? Why had he allowed her to believe that he was just another poor farmer? Amina knew she couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. She had to confront him, but the thought of facing him terrified her. What would he say? Would he try to explain himself, or would he become angry, accusing her of betraying his trust? She decided that the next time Kofi returned, she would not hide her feelings. She would demand answers, no matter the cost. But first, she needed to gather the courage to face him. Days passed in a blur of uncertainty, and finally, the moment came. Kofi returned one evening as the sun was setting, the sky painted in shades of red and orange. Amina had been waiting for him, standing by the doorway, her heart pounding in her chest. As he stepped inside, she didn't greet him with the usual warm smile or soft words. Instead, she stood silent, her eyes fixed on him, searching for the truth in his face. Kofi seemed startled by the change in her demeanor. He paused for a moment, then stepped closer, his brow furrowing in confusion. Amina, what is wrong? You look upset. Amina crossed her arms, her voice calm but firm. Kofi, I know what you're hiding. I followed you. Kofi's eyes widened, but he didn't speak. He was silent, waiting for her to continue. I saw the mansion, Kofi. I saw the people. I saw your wealth. Why did you keep it from me? Why did you make me believe you were just a poor farmer like the rest of us? Her voice trembled with a mixture of hurt and anger. For a long moment, Kofi said nothing. He stared at her, his face unreadable. Then, finally, he spoke in a low voice. Amina, I never wanted you to find out this way. Then why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you trust me enough to be honest with me? Amina's voice cracked, her frustration spilling over. Kofi sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. He looked away, as though struggling to find the right words. When he finally spoke, it was with an honesty that startled Amina. The truth is, I've never wanted anyone to know who I am. I've lived this way for many years. The mansion, the wealth, it's all true. But I didn't want it to define me, and I didn't want it to change the way people saw me. People in the village, they only see what they want to see. They don't know who I am, and I've spent my life trying to keep it that way. Amina felt a surge of confusion. But why? Why hide it from me, Kofi? I'm your wife. Shouldn't I be the one person you trust the most? Kofi's eyes softened as he met her gaze. I didn't want you to marry me for my wealth. I wanted you to marry me for who I am, not for what I have. I thought that if I revealed my true self, you might only see me as a rich man and not as the person I really am. Amina stood there, processing his words. It was clear that Kofi had been living with his own internal struggles, torn between his wealth and his desire to remain humble. But the hurt in Amina's heart couldn't be ignored. I don't understand, she said quietly, the frustration still evident in her voice. I married you because I wanted to know you. I wanted to be with you. But now I feel like I don't know who you really are. You've built this wall between us, and I don't know how to break it down. Kofi took a step closer, his expression softening. I'm sorry, Amina. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just didn't want to change everything about us. I wanted to build something real, something pure. But now I see that I've only created distance between us. Amina looked at him, her heart torn. She had always wanted a life of simplicity, of love and connection, not one built on wealth and hidden truths. But at the same time, she couldn't deny that a part of her felt betrayed by Kofi's secrecy. She had trusted him, and he had kept such an important part of his life hidden from her. I need time, Kofi, Amina whispered, her voice shaky. I need time to understand who you really are, and I need to know if I can trust you again. Kofi nodded slowly, his face filled with regret. I understand. I'll give you the space you need, Amina. But I want you to know that I love you, and I will do whatever it takes to make this right. Amina didn't respond right away. She turned away, feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. She needed time to think, to process everything that had happened. The man she had married was not the man she thought he was. But the question remained, could she ever accept the truth? Could she ever love a man who had kept such a big part of himself hidden from her? As the night stretched on, Amina lay awake in bed, her thoughts swirling. She had always dreamed of a life with love and honesty, but now she wasn't sure what that life looked like anymore. The days following the confrontation were filled with silence. Kofi kept his distance, allowing Amina the space she needed to think. He did not press her for answers or ask her to forgive him. Instead, he continued his work as usual, leaving the hut early in the morning and returning late at night. Amina spent her days in a whirlwind of confusion, her thoughts consumed by the man she had married. She could not forget what she had seen, the mansion, the servants, the wealth. Yet, as she tried to understand Kofi's motives, a part of her could not shake the feeling of betrayal. He had kept this secret from her for so long. Why had he never told her the truth before? Was their marriage built on a lie, one that could never be undone? But there was also something else. Beneath the layers of confusion, Amina could feel a pull toward Kofi. His humility, despite his riches, had intrigued her. The way he had lived his life without flaunting his wealth, the way he had chosen to live among the villagers, all of it spoke to a man who wanted something deeper, something more meaningful than just material success. One morning, as the sun rose over the village, Amina stood at the edge of the well, lost in thought. Her mother had noticed her distraction and had been asking her questions about the tension between her and Kofi, but Amina had brushed them off, not knowing how to explain her emotions. It was then that Tand, her younger brother, approached her. He was a bright-eyed boy, always curious and full of energy. He had noticed the change in Amina's mood, and his concern for her was evident. Amina, he said gently, why do you look so sad? You're not like yourself these days. Amina sighed, her shoulders slumping. I don't know what to do, Tand. I feel like everything has changed, and I don't know how to fix it. Tand frowned, looking up at her with his big, innocent eyes. What happened? Why aren't you happy with Kofi anymore? Amina hesitated, unsure how much to explain to her younger brother. Kofi isn't who I thought he was, Tand. He's hiding something big. He's not the poor farmer I thought I married. He's a rich man. He's been keeping it from me, and I don't know why. Tand's eyes widened in surprise. A rich man? But that doesn't sound so bad, does it? Amina smiled softly, ruffling his hair. It's not about the money, Tand. It's about trust. He kept a part of himself hidden from me, and now I feel like I don't know him at all. I don't know if I can forgive him for that. Tand thought for a moment, then looked up at her. Maybe Kofi didn't want to hurt you. Maybe he thought if you knew, you wouldn't love him for who he is. Amina looked down at her brother, surprised by his wisdom. He was young, but he seemed to understand something important. Maybe, she said quietly, but it still hurts. Tand placed a hand on her arm, his expression serious. Amina, sometimes people make mistakes. But if you love him, maybe you can forgive him. Maybe it's not about the secret. Maybe it's about what you two can build together, even with the things you don't know. Amina was silent, her heart heavy with the weight of his words. Could she forgive Kofi? Could she move past the hurt and start again? Was their love strong enough to survive the truth? That evening, as the moon rose high in the sky, Amina found herself standing outside the hut, waiting for Kofi to return. Her heart was pounding in her chest. She had made up her mind. She needed to talk to him, to ask him the questions that had been swirling in her mind. She needed to understand him, to see if their love was still possible, despite the secrets that had come to light. When Kofi returned, he found Amina standing at the doorway, her face bathed in the soft light of the moon. He stopped in his tracks, his eyes searching hers, waiting for her to speak. "Amina," he said softly, his voice filled with uncertainty. Amina took a deep breath, her voice steady but full of emotion. "Kofi, I've been thinking. I can't pretend like nothing has changed. I can't ignore the fact that you've kept something so important from me. But I also know that I don't want to live in a marriage built on secrets. If we're going to move forward, we need to be honest with each other. We need to rebuild that trust." Kofi's expression softened, and he nodded slowly. "I know, Amina. I'm sorry. I should have told you the truth from the beginning. I never meant to hurt you." Amina looked at him, her heart torn between the hurt and the hope that maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to make things right. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet, Kofi. But I want to try. I want to understand you, to know you better. And maybe, in time, we can rebuild what we've lost." Kofi stepped forward, his eyes filled with sincerity. "I will do whatever it takes, Amina. I want us to be together. I want to show you who I really am, not just the man with wealth, but the man I am at my core." Amina nodded, her heart beginning to heal, piece by piece. "Then let's start again. Let's take the time to build something real. Together." Kofi smiled, a small, genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Thank you, Amina. I promise, I will never hide anything from you again." As the two of them stood together under the moonlit sky, Amina felt a glimmer of hope for the future. She didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time in a long while, she felt like they could face it together.